It was a sunny Friday morning in Atlanta, Georgia. I woke up the way I always did, disciplined, focused, in control. I worked out, showered, dressed with intention, and made breakfast while the skyline stared back at me like it belonged to me. Life was good. I was successful. Untouchable. I never imagined this would be the worst day of my life. The day I lost everything. I watched the security guard click the lock behind me. 10 minutes. That's how long it took to erase 15 years of success. I stood on the sidewalk holding a cardboard box, my $5,000 suit suddenly feeling like a costume. At 42, Marcus Hale was supposed to be unstoppable. I kept waiting to wake up to find myself back in my penthouse, coffee brewing, markets opening. But the sidewalk stayed beneath my feet, and the box stayed heavy in my arms. What terrified me wasn't losing the money. It was realizing that without it, I didn't know who I was. Because success had been my armor, my excuse for not needing anyone. And I already knew who would feel it next. Elena. She stayed for 10 years. We met before the penthouse, before success became my personality. She loved me when ambition still had edges. I loved her too. I just never chose her completely. I told myself commitment could wait. That success would make everything else fall into place. Instead, it pulled everything apart. I kept replaying the day in my mind over and over, like if I ran it back enough times I could find the moment where it all went wrong. The first crack, the first sign I ignored. It always came back to the same image. Red screens. At first I told myself it was a glitch. Markets dip all the time. Numbers recover. Systems correct themselves. That's what they're designed to do. But this wasn't a dip. Market didn't dip. It screamed. I could still hear the phones, ringing nonstop, voices overlapping, panic bleeding through walls that used to feel bulletproof. By noon, accounts were frozen. I remembered refreshing the screens, telling myself I could still fix it. Reroute funds. Calm investors. By 3, my partners had already decided my fate. No meeting. No warning. No loyalty. Just paper slid across a desk and eyes that wouldn't meet mine. By 5, I was already a ghost. People who used to wait for my approval stepped around me like I wasn't there. My name vanished from emails. My access disappeared. 15 years erased in one afternoon. I drove home rehearsing apologies I never got to give, promises I thought still mattered. But the penthouse was quiet. Too quiet. Closets empty. No yelling. No confrontation. Just a note beside a blurred sonogram I had ignored. I can't keep waiting for a future you won't choose. You wanted a kingdom. Now you have it. Within weeks, everything followed. Friends disappeared. The car vanished overnight. The glass walls of my life were replaced by peeling wallpaper. I went from everything to nothing. Loss wasn't new to me. I just hadn't named it in years. My parents died in a car accident when I was a child. One moment there were hands to hold and voices calling my name. The next, there was silence and a social worker explaining words I was too young to understand. Ions through foster homes that were crowded and loud, but never warm. Love was something you competed for, not something you were given. I learned early that attachment was temporary and that needing people only led to disappointment. College out of state wasn't just an opportunity. It was an escape. I couldn't wait to leave to become someone no one could overlook. Someone untouchable. Someone successful enough that loss could never reach me again. So I built a life where money replaced people, achievement replaced affection, and control replaced love. I told myself that was strength, and for a long time it worked, until it didn't. Digging through the cardboard box of my office leftovers, I searched for something useful, a charger, a pen, anything that still worked. Instead, my hand brushed against a small velvet jewelry box. My breath caught. I already knew what it was before I opened it. Inside was a diamond ring I had bought 3 years earlier. I remembered standing in that jewelry store, telling myself it was an investment. Something I'd hold on to until the timing was right, until the markets were calm, until my life was perfectly aligned. Staring at it now, I finally admitted the truth. I wasn't waiting on the market. I was waiting for permission to be a man of my word. As I lowered the box back into the cardboard, a folded piece of paper slipped free and landed at my feet. I picked it up. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't a legal notice. It was an email printout from a private clinic. Patient, Elena Vance. Results, positive. Notes, twin gestation confirmed. The room spun. I read it again. And again. Twins. The word echoed through me like a verdict. I hadn't just ignored a girlfriend. I had ignored my own blood. I collapsed onto the cold floor, the ring still clutched in my hand, and sobbed until my lungs burned. This wasn't quiet crying. This was grief ripping through every excuse I had ever made. I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I fell to my knees. I began to pray. I didn't pray for money. I didn't pray for status. I prayed that it wasn't too late. 4 hours later, my phone buzzed. A message from an unfamiliar number. I saw you on the news, Marcus. If you're looking for her, stop. She's at the Grace House for Women. But don't bother showing up. You're the last person those babies need. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I didn't have a car. I had $14. And the Grace House was 30 miles away. I didn't hesitate. So I walked, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing a deal or calculating risk. I was running toward responsibility. By sunrise, my feet were blistered and bleeding. The man staring back at me from a gas station puddle didn't look like a king anymore. No suit, no shine. Just exhaustion and something unfamiliar in his eyes. Honesty. The Grace House sat at the edge of the city, a converted brick warehouse with a small fenced playground behind it. Modest, clean, quiet. Everything I had spent my life overlooking. Inside, my voice cracked as I spoke. I showed the sonogram. I admitted I had nothing left. No money. No influence. No leverage. Just regret. 5 minutes passed. Then a door opened. It was her. Elena looked different. The designer clothes were gone. Not replaced by weakness, but by something heavier. The confidence she once wore so effortlessly had been forged into something quieter, earned. She wore a hoodie and leggings now, her hair pulled back, not styled, not polished, but ready. Ready to survive, ready to protect, ready to carry everything alone if she had to. And in her arms were 2 small bundles wrapped in white. My knees buckled. Marcus? She said, cautious. Guarded. I'm sorry. I whisper. I thought I was building a future, but I was building a cage. She didn't rush toward me. These babies have been alive for 3 weeks. She said quietly. And you're here now because your world fell apart? I'm here because they exist, I said. And because I finally see what I almost lost. She studied me for a long moment. Then she shifted one of the bundles in her arms so I could see them more clearly. This is Noah, she said quietly. And this is Grace. My chest tightened at the sound of their names. These babies are 3 weeks old, she continued. They don't know promises yet. They only know who shows up. She looked back at me. Grace is free, she said at last. But trust has to be earned. I nodded. I didn't argue. For once, I understood that some things couldn't be negotiated. Not love. Not forgiveness. Not the right to stay. I didn't go inside with her that afternoon. I didn't ask to. I sat across the street on the curb and waited. An hour later, I saw her again. Elena was pushing a double stroller through the small gated park behind the building. She moved slowly, like every step carried more weight than the last. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that settles into your bones. Every time one baby cried, the other followed, their voices echoing softly off the brick walls. I wanted to run to her, to take the stroller, to take the weight, to say I was here now, but I stayed where I was. Fear kept me still. Fear that stepping forward too soon would undo the fragile grace she'd given me. Then the sound cut through the quiet. An engine idling. Low, expensive. A black SUV rolled to the curb. The kind of car I used to drive. The kind of car that never brought good news. A man stepped out, crisp suit, polished shoes, legal papers stuffed neatly under his arm. He looked like my old life had found me again. Elena Vance, he called. She froze. The debt doesn't disappear just because Marcus did, he said, loud enough for the park to hear. If he can't pay, the bank will come for everything you have left, including your medical coverage. I saw her shoulders shake, not from weakness, from restraint. Something hardened inside me. I stood up. Hey. The man turned, eyes narrowing. Hale? He sneered. You look like a janitor. I'm the man who's paying his debts, I said, stepping between him and the stroller. Starting now. He laughed. Sure. Cool. With what money? Your balance 0. You don't exist. I met his eyes. Then it's a good thing I'm not in your world anymore. I pulled out my phone. Made one call. Didn't speak. 10 seconds passed. Then his phone rang. I watched his face drain of color as he listened. Confidence collapsed into calculation. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He got back into the SUV and drove away. The park fell silent. Elena stared at me, her hands trembling on the stroller. "How did you do that?" She whispered. "I spent my whole life making people owe me," I said quietly. "I finally used a favor for something that mattered." I reached into my bag and placed 2 small plush lambs on the stroller. "I earned these today," I said. "It's not much, but it's honest." Her eyes softened. "You're bleeding," she said, reaching for my hand. "It's a good pain," I replied. "It reminds me I'm alive." She hesitated, then nodded. "Noah's asleep," she said. "But Grace is awake." She paused, searching my face. "Do you want to hold her?" My heart stopped. She placed Grace into my arms. The world narrowed to her weight in the warmth of her breath. Everything else, skyscrapers, numbers, ego, burned away. "I don't deserve this," I whispered. "No," she said gently. "You don't." Grace's fingers curled around my thumb, and maybe that's the point. The peace didn't last. It never does. A white van pulled up to the curb not 10 minutes later. 2 men stepped out in dark suits, badges flashing. "Marcus Hale?" one of them asked. Ear shifted, cold, heavy. "We're with the Internal Revenue Service." They weren't here to talk. They were here to remind me that the past doesn't loosen its grip just because you've found something worth protecting. "The firm you work for is under federal audit," the taller agent said. "They claim you moved funds before the crash." "I didn't move anything," I said. "I lost everything." "We don't follow appearances," he replied. "We follow paper." Then he looked past me, at Elena. "If we find you're hiding assets, or using this facility to shield them, everyone connected to you becomes part of the investigation, including her." Elena stepped closer to the stroller, instinctively shielding the twins. I felt something rise in me. Not panic, protection. "Leave her out of this," I said. "She hasn't seen me in months." "Then prove it," the agent replied. "Come in tomorrow, cooperate." They turned and walked away, leaving poison in the air. Elena's face was pale. "Marcus, what have you done?" "I'm going to fix it," I said, "even if it means telling the truth about people who don't like the light." The lobby of Hale and Sterling still smelled like polished wood and ambition. 24 hours earlier, I owned this floor. Now the security guard wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm here to see Sterling." "You don't have an appointment," he said quietly. "Tell him I have the red folder from the 2022 off-4 audit." It was a bluff. 2 minutes later, I was inside the penthouse office. Arthur Sterling sat behind his desk like nothing had changed. "You look terrible, Marcus." "You framed me," I said, "and now the IRS is threatening the mother of my children." "You were always the face," he replied calmly. "When things collapse, faces take the fall." "I have nothing left to lose." Sterling smiled thinly. "Then take the million," he said. "Confess, disappear." I thought about $40 earned honestly. "Keep your money," I said. "I don't want your cash. I want your chair." I walked out. That's when my phone buzzed, an unknown number. 1 line of text. "We have the boy." Another followed. "If you want Noah alive, come alone." Midnight at the dock smelled like salt and diesel. The water was black. Still. Waiting. I didn't bring a weapon. I didn't bring backup. Just a dummy folder and a father's heart. A van idled near the water. A man stepped out, holding a car seat. "Drop the folder," he said. My chest tightened. "Let me see his face." He tilted the seat. "Noah. Alive. Breathing." I kicked the folder across the pavement. He opened it and laughed. "Receipts? The real one is already moving," I said. "If I don't check in, everything goes public." The wind carried nothing but waves in my heartbeat. Then he raised the gun, and the night exploded in blue and red. "Federal agents, drop the weapon." The man bolted, abandoning the car seat. I ran. I didn't feel my knees hit the concrete. I pulled Noah into my chest as he cried. "I've got you." I sobbed. "I've got you." For the first time in my life, I wasn't holding money. I was holding purpose. Agent Vance approached me slowly, his voice steady but urgent. "They're burning evidence," he said. If you don't have proof, Sterling walks. I know where it is, I said. The penthouse. The building felt like a tomb, furniture draped in white sheets, power strip bare, silence echoing where ambition once lived. I moved through rooms that used to define me, every step heavier than the last. The ledger was hidden beneath the floorboards, old school, just like Sterling. I pulled it free, a voice cut through the dark. Hand it over. Arthur Sterling stood in the doorway, gun raised. I didn't flinch. I held the book over the fireplace. I spent my whole life building things that could be taken from me. I said, tonight, I choose what survives. I let it fall into the flames. Sterling lunged. Vance tackled him. As the pages curled and burned, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a flash drive. Scan, I said. Every page. Sterling screamed as he was dragged away. For the first time, the scales shifted. The sun was rising when I walked out of the federal building. I hadn't slept. My clothes were torn. My body ached. But the air felt lighter. When I reached the Grace house, Elena was waiting on the steps with 2 mugs of coffee. Noah's safe, I said. Sterling is in custody. She didn't ask questions. She just wrapped her arms around me. You stay, she whispered. I had nowhere else to go, I said. Everything I need is right here. 6 months later, my office was a half-finished kitchen. I wore a tool belt instead of a suit. My hands were rough. My pride was honest. Noah and Grace were learning how to crawl. One afternoon, a silver sedan pulled into the driveway. A lawyer stepped out. Julian Vane left a contingency. He said, it activates only if you ever hit a net worth of 0. Inside the envelope was land in the valley, seed money, and a key. I handed it back. I don't want it. Elena looked at me. The money could secure our future. No, I said. This is our future. I asked the lawyer to donate it to the Grace house. That night, Elena kissed me, not out of relief about respect. A camera flash came just after midnight. Next morning, an envelope sat on our porch. Inside was a photo of us laughing in the driveway. Grace's face circled in red. 5 words on the back of the debt is never 0. The Iron Lily had roots. I made a call. The Iron Lily, a voice said, blind trust. Everyone knows who's behind it. Cassandra Vane. I felt the chill settle in. I hadn't taken the inheritance. To Cassandra, that wasn't humility. It was defiance. A black SUV idled at the end of our street. I walked toward it. Tell her I'm not the man I used to be, I said to the tinted glass. And if she circles my daughter's face again, she'll learn what a man with nothing left to lose can do. The SUV rolled away. Inside, Elena held the photo. The war had followed us home. That night, an old phone buzzed. A message. The Iron Lily was just a branch. You forgot the root. G.V. Weiss stepped outside. Julian Vane stood at the edge of the property, tapping his watch. Alive. Watching. Waiting. The man I used to be would have run. The man I am now stayed. Because redemption doesn't end the fight. It tells you what's worth fighting for. And this was only the beginning. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe for the next chapter of redemption. Like this video to help this story reach someone who needs it. And comment below. Tell me what part of Marcus's journey hit you the hardest. Because the cost of truth hasn't been paid yet.